Good evening, viewers. This is our Friday night evening news live from Maidan. Tonight we have a special guest in the studio, Chris Taylor. Chris is from England and he's been Maidan activist from the beginning. He spent the last 4 years in Ukraine. Hello, Chris.
Good evening.
Nice having you here. Our main headlines today is the situation about what's happening in Crimea. If you've been following closely, you probably know that yesterday the Supreme Council of Crimea was occupied by the armed men. There were about 120 armed men with machine guns and grenades who took the Supreme Council by force. And currently we have had several laws that were passed by the Crimean parliament that was all under pressure of the armed men who are remaining in the building in the same room as the Crimean deputies. The main changes that happened in Crimea in the Supreme Council were that they have installed a new prime minister as well as the new cabinet, and they've called for a referendum on the Crimea's independence from Ukraine. One of the questions in the referendum is would you like the Crimea to become a part of Russia? The second one is if you would like the Crimea to be independent, and the third one is if you would like the Crimea to remain a part of Ukraine. Obviously those laws have been passed under pressure, and they're not officially recognized by the Ukrainian government. We are seeing heavy movements of Russian troops in the Crimea. Russia is declaring that those movements are part of usual organized exercises that they're normally conducting. However, Ukrainian side is denying it, saying that there are no agreements for such heavy movements of heavy artillery and troops around the peninsula. Another main headline for today is the Yanukovych press conference in Russia. He has came out of hiding this morning, calling for a press conference in Russian city Rostov-na-Donu. It happened at 3 p.m. This afternoon. There was very strict security procedures. Even apples were confiscated from the visitors, and the explanation was that the security is worried that they can be thrown at the former president Yanukovych. Yanukovych reported that he was helped by the Ukrainian officers to flee the country, and he also declared that he has telephoned Putin on his arrival and is trying to arrange a meeting with him. However, so far Putin has not scheduled a meeting with him. A few words on the new Ukrainian government that was sworn in place last night. It consisted of the prime minister of the new government was elected. Arseniy Yatsenyuk was elected as a prime minister of the new government, and there are several ministers who are already been in government before. Among them there are 3 millionaires, which is contrary to the demands by Maidan, who were calling for new cabinet ministers to be free of people who were in government before. However, we are seeing a few positive signs there, as the new Minister of Economy, Pavlo Sheremeta, arrived by tube to his first day of work, showing a good example and breaking the tradition of ministers arriving by armored Mercedeses. Austria officially imposed sanctions on 18 Ukrainian officials. They have all been named. They include Yanukovych and his son, as well as 16 other top officials like Kluyev and Azarov. Austria has frozen their assets and applied visa restrictions to those citizens. Switzerland has followed the suit and promised to freeze the accounts of Yanukovych and his family if they find them. They have also conducted searches on the premises of Yanukovych's businesses on Swiss territory. Supreme Council of Ukraine has cancelled some privileges that deputies enjoyed until now, like unlimited travel allowance. However, it seems to be a small token, as Maidan activists were requesting of cancelling the legal immunity from prosecution, as Ukrainian deputies currently are immune to the prosecution. They cannot be arrested unless the Supreme Council agrees for them to be arrested or prosecuted. They seem to be unwilling to listen, and we are not hearing any talks about cancelling that immunity, even though this is one of the main demands by the activists of Maidan. A request by the journalist to make, by Ukrainian journalist Leshchenko, who works for Ukrainian Pravda, to make income declaration of the Party of Regions public was denied by the new government. Currently, the second request has been submitted, and we are all hoping that that was just a technical mistake, as the declaration of public officials should be made available for public inspection, and transparency was the key demand of Maidan, that all the procedures in Ukraine should be transparent in order to avoid corruption. Russia has declared that it's ready to give citizenship and employment to disgraced policemen and everyone who is leaving Ukraine. They are ready. They have passed the resolution in Parliament that is declaring the readiness of Russia to make the simplified procedure for those fleeing Ukraine to adopt Russian citizenship. We're actually seeing similar situation as with Georgia in 2008, where many citizens of Georgia were offered Russian citizenship, and many of them accepted, and as a result, we've perhaps an indirect result, but it might have played a part in the events that happened in August 2008. I think these are the main headlines for today, and we're now going to have a discussion with our guest, Chris. I would like to ask for his opinion, what does he think about current events on Maidan, and especially what's happening in Crimea. Chris, what do you think? What is your understanding of the situation in Crimea?
It's very worrying. I think it looks honestly like an invasion. Maybe that's a little bit scaremongering, but we do know that Russia has a large military presence there. It's fairly normal for them to move troops around, but I think this is not normal.
Yes, I agree. It looks quite scary considering all the fact that they've mobilized 150,000 of troops in the northern region of Russia, which is adjacent to Ukraine.
Yeah, that's. I mean, obviously, Putin is angry that Yanukovych lost. He's angry that Ukraine is very unlikely to join a Eurasian Union with him now, which means it's ended because he didn't. It's nothing with just Russia and Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan.
Yes.
So he's annoyed. He's rattling the saber. It doesn't help that there are Russian troops already on Ukrainian soil, which he can move around. He can pretend to the world that he's just doing simple exercises. But when you have 120 well-armed, well-trained, well-planned people moving into a Crimean building, a state building, these are not normal terrorists.
Yes, absolutely.
He's been bleating, crying for the past 3 months that there have been terrorists in Ukraine, and we found them. They are wearing Russian uniforms in Crimea. That's my opinion on it. I don't know what happened. What will happen. I believe he's a bully. He's a bully like Yanukovych, and the way to really stand up to bullies is with equal force.
It's quite interesting that Russia today officially declared that they are unwilling to conduct negotiations with Ukraine about Crimea, as they see it as internal matter. By that statement, they in fact distancing themselves from.
It's very typical if you look past Russian history throughout the ages. They say one thing and they do exactly the opposite. They've done it since Peter the Great. It's nothing new. I don't know why anyone in the world believes anything a Russian diplomat says, a Russian politician says, unless they say I am a crook. Then you might believe that. Russia, they have their own agenda. They were annoyed with Ukraine, they want to destabilise it. I don't think that they really want a full-scale invasion of Crimea, but they want Ukraine to be worried, scared. So that's it. If Ukraine starts to mobilise the armoured divisions towards the Crimea, then perhaps they'll say we were just doing some exercises and pull out. But
yes, I agree. I think our main goal is to win the hearts and minds of the Ukrainian citizens who've been brainwashed by Russian propaganda for the past 25 years. They've been living in constant fear of invasion from Western Ukraine. That's basically what Russian television was, Russian and Ukrainian state television was trying to make them clear.
Yeah, I mean, your own state, Inter, have a lot to answer for here. I mean, that they really should be possibly taken off air. But again, I don't believe. I mean, that you fight for freedom of expression, so people can have the freedom of expression. But it's when do you stop? They are promoting this myth that the Western Ukrainians are Nazis, fascists, so-called banderites. Then that's promoting hate speech.
Well, it is. It's not basically. This is promoting hatred. This is giving the incorrect information. So basically, it is a false information, and that's what we've been hearing from the state media all for the past 3 months. That Maidan is the collection of thugs and extremists who are mostly nationalists, far-right nationalists, and.
I mean, I've been down on Maidan nearly every day since the start of December, and as in all organisations, there are those that are more extreme than others, and those that want something to happen, or those that take a passive step. But I have seen no anti-Semitism, no racism, no sort of. None of these things that you would expect to see from fascists or extremists anywhere on Maidan. I mean, in fact, the only examples of that have come from the police, the Gurkha, and the government side.
Yes, absolutely. I think we had another development last night that the right sector, which is like the far-right organization that played some part in Maidan, they actually declared they are against anti-Semitism. And they were fighting alongside the Jewish people who were forming their own regiment on Maidan, and we don't see. I personally haven't seen any anti-Semitism or racism.
No, I mean racism isn't an issue in Ukraine as such. You have to have someone to be racist against, but. If we were talking of skin colour racism, then perhaps there are regions. But if we go back to the Jewish issue we just raised, for sure there's been plenty of documentation of Jewish leaders in Ukraine standing up and saying, we are for Maidan, we do not feel threatened by Maidan, we have met the right sector. I believe the right sector's main failing is calling themselves the right sector. They maybe should have called themselves the West sector.
Yes.
And the word right obviously brings
has negative connotations.
But the guy, Yorash he said some very sensible things. But again, and this is to take everyone, what they say on camera is maybe not often what they feel. I mean, even Chanabok 10 years ago made some fairly outlandish statements against that could be deemed very nationalistic, but people change. He and Svoboda, who were going that way, on that side, have been very active in Maidan, and I don't think it would have succeeded without their activism, the effort to move things along that they brought to it.
Yes, absolutely. What do you think about Austria finally imposing the sanctions?
Well, it's 3 months too late, or should we say 4 years too late. Let's just put it, Yanukovych is just a crook. He's just a simple crook. I mean, the people of Ukraine. However, the election seems to have been fairly given the okay when he was elected, but I think that was more anti-Timoshenko than pro-Yanukovych in a lot of regions. You elected a crook. He's just a thief. I mean, I went to Medjugorje on Saturday, and it's disgusting. And it's disgusting for the bad taste, the sheer amount of money he has spent. And he's just looking at how to spend it. He has so much that he's trying to just, what can I buy? I can buy a good solid gold bread loaf. I can put a boxing ring, and I can have my own petrol station. I can have all of these things. I can steal state assets, the historical book we all saw that came to light yesterday. And he's just spent the last 4 years enriching himself, his son, and a clique of a few the family members.
Yes, indeed. His son, who was a dentist in the past, came there. Basically he is a billionaire.
Yeah,
he was a billionaire.
I mean, if you're a dentist in the UK, you live a very nice life. It's not badly paid, but you don't start owning banks overnight unless you. And even if your dad does become prime minister, you still don't start owning banks overnight. It's just been the biggest theft in history. Forget all of the British viewers, the Matt Brink's robbery, the Great Train Robbery, it's the Great Ukraine Robbery. I mean, Yatsenuk went on and said $70 billion. It's staggering. I mean, that would be staggering in a country of Britain or America's economy, but for it to be, I believe Ukraine's economy is around $200 billion a year. So
I think the Ukraine budget is about $45 billion, but yes.
Yeah, well, I heard 200 billion is the
it's probably their GDP.
Yeah, so it's what, it's 30%. It's a staggering, a yearly GDP that they've squirreled away, and there becomes a point where, what are you stealing for? I mean, how much more can you have? How many swimming pools do you want? How many houses? How many? It's mentality of these people. They just want more and more. And I think we all watched his press conference today, and he just looks stupid. Realistically, he's just. I can't see anyone in Ukraine taking any of that seriously. At least I hope not. You all seem quite sensible people.
Yes, I don't think that anyone ever took him seriously, but obviously we had to listen to what he says, because he's a president. He was in charge of the country, and while everyone, I personally don't know a person who took him seriously, but he signed the laws, he influenced the politics, and unfortunately it led to what we currently have. It led to rebellion, full-scale rebellion against this regime. So I suppose we can in some way we can thank him that obviously, even though we incurred great losses, people of Ukraine finally woke up to the fact that it's not right what's been happening in this country for 25 years. Because under Yanukovych it's only just became worse, but it pretty much was the same since 1991 when all the criminal elites, all the former Communist Party leaders came to power and started enriching themselves at the expense of regular people.
Yeah, and that's the problem that this new government and the next president will have after your elections. Let's totally disregard anything Yanukovych says because it was the ravings of a madman. So I don't want to. I really don't see any point talking about it.
I suppose there's no point discussing what he said and when. This is.
So I mean, he fled. He left. He's been deposed. He's no longer president. You have an acting president. Seems quite sensible. I don't know. I don't know a lot of the political figures. You have a government, they've got work to do. So it's important that Yatsenuk is clean. I don't know how clean he is. It's important that he's as clean as he can be. I don't think there's any politicians in Ukraine who can say, here's my accounts, I am clean.
Well, this is the problem, because what Maidan wanted from this government is that everyone in the government to be professional and not affiliated with politics, which is a reasonable demand. You don't have to be a politician to be in government and to make to have your ministry functioning and to have it. For it to be successful, you don't have to be in politics. You have to be a professional in your own field.
Of course you don't. I mean, I think there was a mix of people. But I believe that the finance minister is not a politician.
Yes, that's right.
The health minister, is that a doctor now?
Health minister is also not a politician. It's one of the better.
And I believe that there will be lots of people quaking if Tanya Chornoville starts corruption.
Corruption committee.
I am actually surprised there's no one in jail yet. You know, it depends. I mean, she obviously needs power, and she needs not to have to go through the Ministry of Interior to get people arrested. She needs to have the power to arrest people through her own department. That's important. And the same with the Lustration Committee. I think Maidan is it's a bit idealistic to say you can't have any politicians, you can't have career politicians, but it's about having a mix. Because you know what you need politicians because you need liars to speak to other countries.
Well, but we have something new being born here. I think we can just start from scratch and just tell the truth. Why not? I mean, this is just how the politics has been going for so far, that you have to pretend not to say what you really think. But why should this continue? Why shouldn't we just be honest with each other and having people say what they need?
I believe that's the case. But what you have to do is you have to get on with it now. There's an endless discussion of who should be in the parliament, and for every one role you could have 50 people. Everyone says, "Oh, this should go." They picked them. They were presented to Maidan on Wednesday. There was a mixed reception. I don't think you really can't expect. Oh, we couldn't have sort of expected that there would be no politicians in this interim government. However nicely we would have wanted that to be. I don't know. I was fairly impressed with Yatsenuk at the start of the protests, but have been sort of less impressed since it turned violent. I mean, I think he's done a lot of sound bites. We will attack. If there's a bullet for me, then so be it. And
yes, he was never in the front line.
Whereas Klitschko, so my phone is ringing. See who.
I think basically what we were hoping, and that was a real hope, and I think it was our mistake that Maidan didn't manage to organize itself properly in order to pressure the politicians to make the government as we saw it. So obviously now we have the government, and I don't think it's wise at this stage to start a fight. What we need is creating communities around each ministry, around each government organization that will actually keep an eye on that organization to make sure that we have control over and everything is transparent.
I believe that's something. You've got to keep the pressure on these politicians, on the government. But as Yatsenuk said when he was given the role, it's a bomb they've took. They're going to have to introduce higher gas prices. There's going to be probably a reduction in benefits for people. They're going to have, there's going to be a lot of changes, and people are going to be impacted on that. He might have thrown himself, I doubt it, but he may have thrown himself on the sword for the country here. I mean, if he gets through 3 months of changes, obviously he's a politician, so you can't imagine that.
I think he was already realizing, to be honest, this is not an official information, so I wouldn't want to obviously say it on air, but people in Ukraine know quite a lot of things about politicians that are not public. And Yatsenuk is one of those people who's been in politics for a long time. He is a clever guy. He would obviously he's been friends with all the other politicians, and he he realized that during this protest he lost all his popularity. So what is his motivation in going to the government? I honestly don't know.
Well, I believe that, I mean, this is my thoughts in the shower about the government, that Klitschko will win the election. I think he will have enough support in the West, and he will be less divisive than Chanabok or Tymoshenko if she runs in the East. So I think he'll win. I think he'll probably win quite comfortably.
Yes, it's quite possible, although we are not discussing any new candidates, because it's quite possible that there will be, because we have, for example, we have Olga Bohomolets, who is very popular among people. Bohomolets, yes. Tymoshenko said that the next president of Ukraine should be a woman, so why not? Well, just not her.
I mean, what is important though is that the president is lame, that he's just a figurehead. Whoever it is, I think that's it. You have to keep the power in the parliament now to stop what Yanukovych did happening. But I think Klitschko will be president. If I was asked to bet now, I would say Klitschko. Maybe someone would come out of the field, and then obviously he will give positions to Poroshenko probably. And I also think that he'll probably throw a position to Yatsenyuk for taking this poison chalice now. So Yatsenyuk, he's got himself covered. If Tymoshenko wins, he's going to be Prime Minister. If Klitschko wins, he's probably going to get a position. So for sitting on this, someone had to take this, and I think you'd be very idealistic to think of politicians not getting in.
Well, of course they will get in, and they have a lot of resources in terms of money, because they've been accumulating them for the past 25 years at the expense of the state. But this is, I think Maidan changed a lot of people in terms of they just don't want to see same old faces there. I mean, while we're probably not going to achieve the government and the Supreme Council that is completely new, what we do, we'll fight for it to make sure that those people from the past, they're not in.
Yeah, that's important.
Poroshenko was on the previous Maidan. If he was in 2004. He was there. He was a successful businessman during Yanukovych's reign. Even though Yanukovych, a lot of businessmen lost their businesses to Yanukovych. Because that was a popular activity of his family. They just used to come to the office, say, well, we can leave you 10% of your business, and that's what, we'll just take care of you, and that's what they.
What is important, whoever who leads the country, is that they are accountable and that they do give out proper statements of income, and that this immunity is removed.
Yes.
There are lots of MPs who probably should just walk themselves to Lukyanovka jail and hand themselves in. It would save us all a lot of time and effort, not us, the Ukrainian people. But obviously they're not going to do that. They're going to try and cling on. This is what politicians do. It's an easy job with no heavy lifting. So
yes.
They're not working in a mine, and they can enrich themselves. What we have to make sure is that they can't enrich themselves beyond their salary.
Absolutely. I think that this will be the main task of Ukrainian people now, that both who live in Ukraine and those who live abroad, that we need to keep what we have here going, keep Maidan going for forever, and having all the activists who now gathered in Maidan, having them building the better country by themselves. Politicians can be just people who are in parliament and who listen to what the people have to say.
It's important that the longer Maidan goes on, the more sort of extremist, so the more moderate people will leave, and we have a more extremist sort of left, and that the ideas are sort of diluted by the mass of the people. So Maidan needs to stay. It needs to stay. It needs to be the policeman of the government. But that's not to say Maidan will always be right.
Well, it's Maidan is the active part of Ukraine. Basically, what Maidan is are those people who are ready to do something if they feel that they are, well, in some way there is no justice being done. So what we have, Maidan is basically the active population of Ukraine, those who are ready to get out off the couch and do something about their beliefs. So we have different people on Maidan, you know, with them. It's representing, you know, people from all layers of society, people with higher education, farmers, you know, people with, you know, the different professions, different education.
I think it's important that they all stay together and then they all keep pushing this government to do the right thing, to expose corruption, to remove corruption as much as possible. There's always levels of corruption in any society. You know, I'm a businessman, I take my supposed next customer out to dinner. That's corruption. You know, there's levels of corruption. But stealing companies because you can, as Yanukovych's son has done it, is you know.
Yes, but I think that there is a. I would say that there is, in most cases, there is a fine line to corruption, because if you're taking a public official to dinner, or if you're taking a buyer from a company to dinner, that's not the same as if you're taking a company owner to dinner.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it is important that there are some strict regulations about what a public official can receive. No more free holidays, no more free housing, none of this, the gifts that businessmen give these officials to ease through the business. And what is also important is that the Ukraine clears out this petty bureaucracy, this level of making it difficult to do anything here. I mean, the difficulties everyone has doing anything here. Getting married here was just a pain. So many forms to fill in. You take slips you go and register in one line, and then you're registering to queue in another line, and you're like, this could just be done in 10 minutes. But what you've got is someone wanting their cut, someone wanting another cut, someone wanting a little bit more, someone wanting to do something. So in order to sort of you have to just possibly just sweep away this level of...
Absolutely. I think that one of the main principles now that, well, at least the activists of Maidan keep in mind is that, well, from now on, bribery is simply treason to the country, treason of the people who have died, you know, those who were defending it from the attacks. So this is, from now on, those who will take bribes, they should be looked at.
And not just take bribes. Those are offer bribes.
Or offer bribes.
If you try and clean up the police, like for example Georgia, they did a whole sweep. They got rid of nearly all their police and replaced them with cadets. And I don't know if that's a possibility here, or if the police can be converted here. I think you have to lose a lot of them. But if they stop taking bribes, they've got to start then arresting people who offer them bribes. And I think once the first few policemen get put in prison for taking bribes, that'll put a thing out to people it's the right direction. But what will really shock people is when the first members of the public are put in prison for offering a bribe.
Yes.
I'll forget that. 200 hryvnias, 100, that's when people will start going, okay. And that's what I mean, that perhaps the country should set up an anti-corruption phone line, an anti-corruption website, that any time an official says, give me some money, you key his name in, who he is, where it is, and someone from the anti-corruption ministry investigates them.
I think something like that was actually set up today by the anti-corruption movement. They've set up a website, and that's what you're saying, that I think that's already in place, at least some of the...
That's positive stuff. I mean, that's stuff that can happen now. I mean, that's maybe not... It will take time for people to come through to be prosecuted, but if people can actually say, oh, I went to get a document today, I went to get a new gas pipe in my house, and I had to pay this, and they said it would take 3 weeks, but if I paid 100 hryvnias, it would take an hour. So basically, that person is deliberately making your job your life more difficult, so you'll pay them. They're not doing their job. Report them, Someone has a word. Okay, do it again, you're fired. Or maybe you just fire them.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, yes, I think that's the way forward.
That's a good way forward. If we clean up your government, you know, it's a long step. I mean,
Yes, we'll just have to keep an eye on them from now on and not let them relax and not let them get too comfortable.
You know, and one of the things I think Ukraine needs to do is to get off its dependency on gas.
Well, yes, that's a discussion. That's a topic I think that we can discuss another time,
Yeah.
because there are obviously there are a lot of issues there, and there are ways forward. Again, there are ways how Ukraine can do that, given that mostly the needs for gas are by those large factories, large businesses that's been transferring their money abroad, like Akhmetov, Benchuk. That's their businesses that needs that Russian gas.
I mean,
So why not have them modernize the factories for the money they've been taking out of those factories for years?
well, I mean, one of the ideas is that the new government, the new president, when he's elected, goes to these oligarchs who obviously acquired these state assets at, let's say, positive, very dubious means. I mean, you could just say they stole them. We're going to say that let's say the tendering process wasn't transparent. They should go to the Akhmetov, Firtash, Pinchuk and say, right, we're going to come after everything, or you give us 25% now.
Yes, that's a good idea, and there are a number of people who've been voicing this as well. That this is the legalization of capital. If you're willing to pay up for the tax that you've avoided for their tenders that never have happened, and that's you should be willing to sacrifice some of it. And if not, then there will be an investigation, and obviously we'll have a look at what has really happened. And
it will be done while you're in a prison cell.
Yes.
I think they've got to be tough on these people who've stolen Ukrainian state assets. That's what they did. I mean, yeah. But that's a tough line on these people who have enriched themselves while the country's got poor.
Absolutely.
Not just Yanukovych and his family. They've done it in the last 4 years, but you need to start with Tymoshenko.
Yes, that's a lot of work. A lot of work ahead of us.
Of course it is, but you have an opportunity to do it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, I think we are out of time for tonight. We hope to have Chris here join our discussions on a regular basis, and thank you very much. Thank you, Chris.
Yes.